Welcome back to Yanks Abroad. I'm Casey Settleman.
Will Balsam.
And first off, Happy New Year to everybody.
It's January.
It's January, which means it's 2024, and it means that the window is open. So we have a transfer window special today. First off, subscribe and like if you enjoy the channel, and just as like a New Year's resolution type of thing, like it would be a good thing for you guys to do for us. I don't know if that's how New Year's resolutions work.
Well, my New Year's resolution is to get you to subscribe.
Okay,
so you're helping me complete my New Year's resolution.
All right, so subscribe. But today we have the Big Six, who aren't entirely the Big Six anymore, but the traditional Big Six. 3 moves for each of the traditional Big Six. And then going back to last summer, our top 3.
And bottom 3.
And bottom 3. Best and worst transfers from the summer. But first,
for the Premier League.
For the Premier League. But first, let's get into the Big Six, either incoming or outcoming, whoever you want to start with, your transfers you want to see happen now that we are in the winter window.
Let's start with Liverpool. I think Liverpool is an interesting one, mostly because I feel like these are not names that we would necessarily associate with Liverpool, except for the situation of where they are with their project and where they are in the title race.
Interesting.
So my first
Not sure I know what that means, but I'm excited for...
Well, my first move, and I think we might have discussed it on one of our first 2 episodes, is João Palhinha. Going to Liverpool for $60 million. I believe...
You included price tags.
For some of them I did. I think he's going to be around $60 million. I mean, he's been rumored to Bayern. He's been rumored to Arsenal. I think it's actually going to be a heavy race. I think Arsenal are going to be interested. I think they're going to look for another midfielder. I will get to
think Arsenal would spend big money on another 6?
Yes.
Wow. Is that from Mr. 7.5 source, or is that from your brain?
Mix of source and my brain and my understanding of the way Arsenal is structured. I can get into this now, or we can wait till we talk Arsenal.
Oh, let's wait then.
Okay.
Yes. Good
so,
point.
yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit. Like, they need a 6. They haven't replaced Fabinho. They have Basetic, who's young, but is going to be great. And I think he's a long-term 6. And I think Palhinha is the right age profile where he doesn't get in his way, right? He comes in right now. He's an aggressive midfielder the way Klopp likes. He can cover a lot of space. He's actually fairly good in the final third as well. I think he's a big-bodied 6. It's the kind of profile that Klopp loves at this position. It makes sense right now to help them go out and win the title. I think João Palhinha is a no-brainer for them, and I think they can beat Bayern to it. If I'm him, I want to stay in the Premier League. I just got here.
Do you think Bayern will be back in on him in January? Because I think
Bayern
for whatever
will wait till
reason,
the summer.
Kimmich, they don't get along very well.
Kimmich and Tuchel.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's getting along with Tuchel all that well over there.
That's fair. Okay, I will go with my first. We'll go back and forth for Liverpool, and it just makes sense because number 1 is getting a 6. They're obviously in for both guys that Chelsea got, and they ran out of time, essentially, because they didn't get either of them. They need to get a 6 in. A few names. I know they're linked with Kefren Turam over the summer, so I don't know what that looks like in terms of would he move in January.
Sure.
And then the other name that I haven't seen rumors of, this is more of like I think it would be great and love to see it happen, is Benacer from AC Milan.
Highlander.
Yeah, I think, is he? I didn't know that. He is amazing, and I think
Big fan. So when he went to AC Milan, Arsenal had the opportunity to have a buyback clause. I think it was like £2.5 million. But it was like right in the in-between era between Emery and Arteta, and they didn't activate it. And I actually don't think he would have fit Arteta's system so well. Like, I'm not sure he's totally capable of playing as a lone 6.
That's what I was about to say.
I think that is like what he does, but in the Premier League, that's another level. But I think he could play as a 6 with McAllister as like more of the box.
That's what I was thinking. McAllister was drilled, and not that this was some mega brain long-term move, but McAllister has been bred habits. That's the word I was looking for. Habits to play the 6. And then if you bring in Benacer, who I was going to say isn't the most traditional, but you could have McAllister in some sort of a more traditional pivot that I think could work.
I think that's reasonable.
All right. So that's where I went with. So number 1 overall in the entire transfer window is get Liverpool at number 6.
Yes. I think that's number 1, but number 2 for me is close second, and that's getting a center back in.
Yeah, that's my next.
And I have Maxence Lacroix from Wolfsburg, who has been fantastic.
Yeah.
He's tall.
He's talked about every time a window pops up.
Yes. And he's 6'3",
Yeah.
6'3", which is Liverpool. Like all their center backs are tall and fast. Like they all can cover a lot of ground. They're all comfortable on the ball. And he can play either as a left center back or a right center back. So I think he's probably the guy they're going to go for. I think he's rumored for like $30 million release clause, €30 million release clause, give or take. It's a reasonable price. You get him in for, again, this title race for Liverpool dies immediately without a 6 and a center back. So I think those two are definitely top of the list, and that's who I've seen rumored. So I think they'll make the move for him.
My second one, also a center back. We're on the same wavelength, just different players. I have Gonzalo Ignacio from Sporting.
Yeah.
He, similar build.
Yeah.
And Ruben Diaz from Sporting, or am I making that up? Benfica?
Ruben Diaz is from Benfica.
Benfica, yeah. I think Portugal, the Portuguese league breeds good center backs.
Yeah, Sporting have a couple of good ones.
Yeah. And I think he's been slightly rumored, and the reason that he's not as strong is because I think he would be more expensive. I think he would be a $60 to $7 million price tag.
Especially in January.
Yeah, exactly. The price goes up in January, and my Liverpool fans have told me that Klopp doesn't like to spend money in January. But I don't know if they've ever needed it as badly.
I mean, they spent money on Gakpo last January.
Right. I don't know if they've ever needed it more than they need it now in these two positions, especially. And do you pay that amount of money for someone who potentially is a squad player and not like a day one starter?
Right.
Is the question. But I've seen that a couple times. I haven't watched a ton of them, but everything I've read and a few highlight reels that I've watched, he looks really good. So I went in.
Yeah, no, he was good against us in the Europa League last year. He's a very good center back.
Yeah.
My third is Maximilian Bayer, who I mentioned for potentially to make the Germany squad in the Euros. He's had a great start to the season. If they can get him on the current release clause that he has before he signs a contract extension, which I can only assume is coming, that'd be a big signing for them. And it allows them to play Nunez out on the left, which I think they like to do. I'm not sure they're convinced in either Diaz or Jota, both in their availability and the way they work in this system.
Yep.
And that allows Nunez to be out left with a more tall and athletic and true center forward to play with their back to goal, and Maximilian Bayer at center forward. He's also pretty mobile. Him and Nunez could swap. So I think, I don't think Liverpool are making 3 signings, but the task here was to go for 3 signings. And I don't really think Liverpool is one of the rare clubs where I think they almost never have dead weight. They're very good at getting the squad to turn over.
They did a good job of that.
Right? Like they got rid of Fabinho and Keita before they became real dead weight, right? So I don't see a lot of outgoings coming. I mean, I'm sure there'll be loans here and there. I'm not going to say I know the inner workings of their academy, but Bayer is my third favorite option for them just because they can get him at probably a cut rate on his release clause. Yeah.
This is all with a grain of salt that probably none of these teams will sign 3 players.
Correct.
And no, it's just 3 players that we could see happening and would be good potentially.
Sure.
I do have an outgoing, and it's contingent on a center back coming in.
Okay.
But I think Joe Gomez's time at Liverpool has run its course.
You're right about
and
that.
I think there are some sides in the bottom half of the table, or if he goes to like an Italy or France and finds his form like Smalling did when he went to Italy.
Roma,
I think Gomez is on his way out because if they bring in a center back, they'll then have Van Dijk. I mean, barring everyone being healthy. I mean, that's why they're bringing in the depth is because everyone's not. But when they are, they'll have Matip, Konate, Van Dijk, and whoever they bring in. That I think Gomez is young enough and has shown enough that they could still get a good price tag for him. So I had
England International always takes extra dollars.
And like, I completely agree with the dead weight comment. I think if they bring in another center back, he could be qualified as
for sure
potential.
I mean, he really hasn't been up to the level of Liverpool for a couple of years.
And he was supposed to be the next guy.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
all right, you choose the next team.
I'm gonna go to the top of my list, which I obviously started with Tottenham.
Okay.
So I'm curious.
Obviously, the bottom of mine.
So this is a situation where you
actually do need 3 players.
Levy, as a whole, doesn't spend. We don't spend that often in January, but if there's any year that we need to spend, I think it's this year. AFCON, we're going to lose Sarr and Basuma. With Bentancur, who just picked up another injury, and Madison injured, we're very low on depth in the center midfielder. And I just saw something that potentially Son is going to be gone for like a month or so.
Yeah, for Asian Cup.
Yeah. I didn't know that was happening, and I'm not too happy about it.
Yeah, we're
going to
lose Tomiyasu for a little while.
Yeah, son Tomiyasu. Anyways, starting, I went with Arthur Veerman. Am I saying that correctly? Vermeeren. Yeah. He plays for Antwerp. Mm-hmm. Once again, don't know much about him.
No way you get him, but sure.
Agreed. He's
spectacular.
He's amazing. And I think he's the type of player that I don't want us to bring in someone who is kind of just a placeholder, because in January you're going to have to overpay.
Right.
So let's bring in someone who can keep us competitive, hold us in the top 4 race and then next year, it's all like a building Lego falling situation to where you keep us in the top 4, everyone comes back, then we're in the Champions League. We need more depth next year. Then you already got it in the center mid position, whatever. So he's who I picked to bring in at the center mid position. It's obviously not extremely realistic. The other 2 I have are more realistic, but I figured I'd just throw that one out there in case anyone in the Tottenham camp happens to be listening to our podcast.
Great. Yeah, I mean, mine is also in the same position, and I feel like, to me, as great as Vermeeren is, and long-term, that brings Tottenham to another level if he develops there. I mean, I think he's going to be a world-class player. My issue with is you bring in Vermeeren from Antwerp to jump into the Premier League, and he's getting thrown into games immediately. You're probably going to struggle. And Tottenham are in a real position right now where they have their eyes on top 4. They want to be back in the Champions League. You're at the crux
to where you got to make a decision, or we're going for it or we're not.
So I have Calvin Phillips as the midfielder that they bring in. I think you get Calvin Phillips at 25 million euros.
Yeah.
And I know he hasn't played much and he's, gained some weight or whatever. This is a player who was excellent for Leeds in the Premier League. He's played at the highest level with England.
He was a no-brainer starter for England for a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this would be a huge get for Tottenham to get a player from Manchester City of this level, of this caliber, and it's not at a high cost, right? 25 million, and you bring him in January, and he's not good for 6 months, whatever.
Right.
You haven't spent your whole budget on it. It would probably won't affect your summer. I think it just makes sense. Obviously, we talked about Højbjerg in previous episodes deteriorating. You need another holding midfielder.
I agree. I almost wrote that down. I think it is unfortunately almost a foregone conclusion that he goes to Newcastle with everything I'm reading with Tonali and obviously.
I mean, I've seen Manchester United are making a late push for him as well.
Really?
So
even though they just brought in Amrabat, that's kind of surprising to me. But like you said,
it's not like they have any real transfer policy over there.
Yeah, anyone who is in form, it's not a big payment to make. So like anyone can realistically be in form. But yeah, everything I read is that they're just going to put him in for where Tonali was supposed to play, which obviously makes a ton of sense. I think it was a loan to Newcastle. Like, they can't bring him in.
Financial fair play.
Yeah, because of financial fair play. But next, I had... So, one that is more of, like, vibes Tottenham Twitter, and then one that's more actual rumors.
I think I have one that's more vibes.
Okay, so it's one of the two. And they're both attacking depth.
Okay.
Is Jota he went to Saudi.
Who was at Celtic.
Correct. Who played for Ange.
Yeah.
He was amazing for him.
Yes,
he's someone I wanted to bring in the summer. He took the money in Saudi. I don't know the details of what's going on, but he hasn't played a match there, and he's suspended. I don't know what it is. He's not playing for the team that bought him. And everyone wants to bring him back. I don't know if that would be a loan situation or not, but like, you bring in someone who is young, has that flair, and played under Ange, that's someone in January who makes a ton of sense. Because, like, similar to what I was saying in episode 1 about Doku and how quickly he adapted to that City team, and I think that's so great. Like, that's rare to come by. Yeah. So if you have a player who's already played in the system and you can bring them in January and they're thrown right in, I think that makes a ton of sense. But the other one is Illing Jr. from Juventus.
I was just talking about him with my Tottenham fan friend. That would be one of the biggest signings Tottenham has ever made.
Yeah, so apparently he's amazing. He's incredible. And just the way Allegri plays at Juve, there's just no space for him.
No, because that's how Allegri plays terrorist ball.
And people are throwing around 15 to 20 mil as the price tag, which...
I mean, you're getting an unproven player, but...
Which apparently could be the steal of forever.
It could be. I mean, I've watched him play quite a bit with the England internationals, like their younger sides, under 21s most recently, and he is... unbelievable.
Yeah. So I think similar to what you were saying with Vermeeren is, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Is we need immediate center mid depth in terms of the injuries and then AFCON. In terms of the front three, we're actually fairly fully healthy to where Ealing Jr. doesn't need to come in and make an immediate impact, and that could be a long-term investment. Jota's young, and that could be a long-term investment, but he would come in and make an immediate impact. So I think center mid, you probably need someone who's more ready, but Ealing Jr. could be a great guy.
For sure. And his final action hasn't like fully been sorted out yet, but his ball manipulation, his creativity, and his pace and power are absurd.
I mean, Tottenham Twitter is posting all the highlight reels.
He's very fun to watch. All right. My second.
You thought we were on the same page. Were we not there?
We were not.
Oh.
My second is a striker for Tottenham.
Really?
And this would be even bigger than Ealing Jr. by 1 million, and that's Santiago Jimenez, who I've seen have a few rumors to Tottenham.
From Feyenoord. He's great.
He's great. And, like, that solves your striker issue for the next 5 years. And so he's going to leave in January or in the summer. He's 100% going to leave. If you can pay an extra 15 million euros and get him this January and not wait until the summer when, like, you know, if Arsenal go for Osimhen and don't get him, that's who they're going to go to. If Bayern go for a striker and don't get him, that's who they're going to go to. Like, he's rumored to a lot of big clubs, but not in January. And if Tottenham can come in and, you know, make a higher price tag on him, because I've seen a lot of rumors of Richarlison potentially leaving in January.
To Saudi.
Yeah. I've seen rumors of Lo Celso leaving. Like, you might have some funds in January.
If
and so
Richarlison leaves, that makes sense, but I think Son at this point in his career, his better position is up front instead of out on the wing. I don't think
Jimenez, I mean, is a true 9, but I think the two of them can do similarly to the way that like Son and Kane did, where like Kane was never playing on the wing, but Kane dropped back so much, right? Like Son was able to be the furthest man forward often, and I think you could have that same pairing with Santiago Jimenez.
I like that a lot. I wasn't thinking striker just because
Richarlison finally
just scored, and Son, in my opinion, has been the best striker in the Prem this year. But I know that we have been linked to strikers due to obvious reasons since Kane has gone. So that's
that was my more like vibes pick. Like,
okay,
I think. Yeah. I mean, again, like I don't think Tottenham is going to be able to get Santiago Jimenez, but in an ideal world, this would be the time that they could get him, in my opinion.
I'm not ready personally to give up on Richarlison, and that may be because
you're telling me if a 50 million euro offer comes in from Saudi.
No, if Saudi is willing to pay Saudi money for him, sure. Yeah. By the way, I said over the summer, which I am wrong about. And I didn't think he would regress. I just thought long-term for Liverpool, it made sense. If they came in with the super Saudi money to get someone from Egypt back, not home.
Like Salah, you're saying?
Yeah. I said they should have taken it.
I feel like one more year.
Yeah. I think the Saudi money is coming from Salah
Liverpool go win the league this year and Salah could just...
I agree. I think they should take the Saudi money before it's too late for Salah. But that's a whole different thing because he's potentially winning them the league this year.
Right.
And then, so finally, the last thing we need is center back depth.
Yep.
Because... we played Emerson Royale, who's a right back, and Ben Davies, who's...
Emerson Royale is a shocking player to watch.
That was tough to watch.
That's one of my biggest misses in my life.
You thought he was going to be good.
I mean, when you got him, like a couple days before we got Tomiyasu, we were tracking him all summer. And, like, I watched not much of him at Betis, but, like, you know, during the summer, you have a lot of time to, like, dive into, like, full match replays and stuff. I thought he was going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
And when you got him, I was so disappointed. Like, not only because we didn't get him, but I truly thought he was going to be spectacular. And within 2 matches watching him in the Premier League, you could tell he is literally one of the worst players.
Not only is he not a good right back, but then once you throw him in center back, that was a tough watch.
And he was playing like left center back, like not even on his strong body positioning side.
It was bad. He played on a left center back with Dyer right center back at one point because Udogie was also out and Davies that was ugly. But anyways, we need center back depth because that can't happen. Ben Davies has done a job with Van de Ven out. I'm fine with him as a squad depth player, as our backup left back or a squad center back. He's more than fine for me. Sure. It wasn't him. It's Dyer or Emerson Royale playing.
Dyer's going to be gone.
Can never step foot in this team again. So I went Todibo.
Okay.
From Nice.
Of course, I have him up for somebody else's list.
They have
Todibo's great.
15 matches and let up 6 goals.
At
the time of recording this.
Todibo and Saliba were center back pairing together at Nice when Saliba was on loan there, and they were incredible to watch.
Todibo. I mean, Todibo he would be how much? I didn't see. I saw a lot of ranges of price
I had 35 million euros written down.
That seems like a steal. I don't know what's going on in the French league, but that stat.
Well, Nice are playing some good football.
They are. They're up there in the table. 6 goals in 15 matches is insanity. And he seems to be the best one in that back line.
I mean, he was a massive, massive prospect at Barcelona. And it was during that time when Barcelona legitimately had to sell all of their young players for nothing because they could not register players.
Exactly.
Like Moriba went to Leipzig, his career ended so fast. But yes, Todibo is incredible. I have him on someone else's list, but that'd be a huge
That's where I went
you.
for center back depth, and like Van de Ven's injury and Romero getting red cards every now and again. It would be good to get some solid depth in there.
It would. I went center back as well. I went Radu Dragusin. I don't know if you've seen much of him.
I don't know who that is.
He's Romanian center back, plays for Genoa. I'm like in a group chat with like some of the Twitter tacticos or whatever you want to call them.
That's deep.
And so
the
like
Genoa center back is deep.
He's good. You're going to see him at the Euros if you don't.
Did you see who he signed though from Split? The 16-year-old center back.
Vucevic. Or?
It's not. It's something Vich.
Yeah.
But apparently he's going to be a stud.
Yeah.
But he's obviously 16 years old.
No, this guy's 21. Really comfortable at left center back. Really comfortable at right center back. Happy to step into midfield, make a tackle. He's a little bit more on the aggressive side in terms of center backs.
So and so Romero like for like.
Yeah, I mean, he's not as aggressive as Romero, but like even like to a Van de Ven point, like he's not a Saliba or Van Dijk who no one's dribbling by them because they're not going to let you.
Yeah.
He's going to make a play on the ball because he's very athletic, he's lanky. But I think he would fit perfectly as depth for you at this point because he can play left center back or right center back. And I mean, he's very, very talented. Genoa is trying to sign him to a contract extension so that they can sell him for a higher value in the summer.
Makes sense, yeah.
But I've seen him rumored to Tottenham. It would be a huge steal. There's a lot of good young center backs in the Serie A. Like we got Kivior for next to nothing, who I think is spectacular. So I would be surprised if Tottenham wasn't looking into that kind of business.
I like that. All right, on to the next.
All right, next. Let's go Manchester City.
Manchester City.
I feel like this one's a little bit more boring. I started with a departure, which is in relation to Tottenham, which is Calvin Phillips.
Okay.
Calvin Phillips is leaving Manchester City.
Yes. That's one we've touched on. Pep's comments, it's so weird.
It's not good to have someone like that in the squad who's like getting isolated.
He's done everything right, just when I visualize the squad, he never fits. I don't know if that's the biggest
Must be nice to spend £55 million on a midfielder.
Is that the biggest insult or a compliment? Like he's doing everything right, but it has to be a nice insult, I guess.
Pep really has a way with words.
Yeah, seriously. All right, so we both agree on that. I have two incomings after the out. All right, you go first.
First I went with a speedy winger because we've seen what Doku has done for them. And I feel like they'll be even more at their best when they get back to having wingers on both sides who are attacking. Foden is, I think, better when he's more central. They can have two attacking wingers, Foden central with De Bruyne and Rodri. I think that could work with Stone stepping into midfield. So I went with Tajon Buchanan, who's the Canadian winger who plays in the Belgian league. Is exactly what I said. He's very direct, loves to get into 1v1s, will take a man on, has excellent final delivery. His rumored price actually pretty high, but not that it matters for Man City, 50 million euros.
How old is he?
I think he's like 24.
Wow, okay.
So yeah, I mean, I think he could just step in right away, give City that little extra push going towards the title here. I mean, I would be surprised if they spent that kind of money in January.
Yeah. I want Elise. Similar, I think they need... I think... I'm going to tie 2 and 3 together, but I think they're missing Mahrez. Like, the reason they're struggling outside of Kevin De Bruyne, they're missing Mahrez and they're missing Gundogan because Nunez nor Kovacic has done the job. So I went Elise from Palace because Palace is not even a top half table club anymore.
But they have so much talent.
But they have so much talent, and they're not going to get relegated. So them offloading a player for a premium price in January makes a ton of sense.
I mean, they'll get 60, 70 million pounds for him.
So you keep Eze as kind of your mainstay piece, and then you get rid of Elise. You get that price bump, and he's kind of he's not a like replacement for Mahrez, but like someone who can maybe take what Mahrez gave them in previous, which links me to number 3. Is finding a Gundogan replacement. I thought Kovacic was really good business.
I did too.
In the summer, it hasn't turned out to be that way. I think it's a little early to like.
I think Nunez long term is going to step into that. I think Matheus Nunes is incredible.
Yeah,
I really like watching him. I mean, there's something to me about like a lanky midfielder who can just glide past players. Like I just think that's such a trait that is unteachable and like really can just change the dynamics of a team. I think Nunez will fill into that role. But I also went midfielder with my last. I went Lucas Paqueta, who they've been rumored with in the past. I think De Bruyne, as he's aging, has gotten a little bit more fragile. Paqueta can kind of fill in that role.
But I think they can play together.
Well, I was going to say, I think they could also... Paqueta's low-key a very physical midfielder. Like, he's a dual winner. He's going to put a fit
That's why I think he's perfect for that, not, like, I guess you call it the 8 position. Like, I think he's perfect.
I think he's like, I mean, I think he's a good alternative to a Nunez or a Kovacic in that role where he can play a little further forward, like in a match where they're going to dominate possession 100%.
And in a City side, like,
and then Paqueta long-term could be the De Bruyne replacement.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, his final ball is not De Bruyne's, but nobody is. Like, they're not going to find the next De Bruyne.
Never.
I mean, that Foden theoretically needs to be the next De Bruyne.
Which I think, I'm a huge, huge Foden fan.
Me as well.
And I think with time,
he's just a step below the best.
Yeah. So I just said need a Gundogan replacement, and there's some realistic, some not.
Okay.
And they're not all the same player, but I said Paqueta.
Okay.
I said Barella.
Okay.
And I said Warren Zaire-Emery. He's obviously not leaving PSG. No. He looks to be
if Man
stud.
City get him,
but if they can somehow pull it off,
I'm going to be very upset.
Could you think of a better person to fit into that?
He is incredible.
Incredible. So we're aligned on so is the yellow card match fixing, is that cleared?
With Paqueta?
Yeah.
He's not hearing anything about it.
So cleared, so I think he'll move in.
Not that Man City don't have enough,
because I think West Ham is in a similar situation to those teams that are not going to compete for European, even like the Conference League. I mean, so it's like offload him if you can, and maybe like how much do you think he would go for in January?
80 million.
You're right. Like that seems
80 to
like
100.
That seems like a time to cash in.
I mean, I think like West Ham's still kind of in a rebuilding phase, right? Like they got all this money from Rice, they're respending it. Edson Alvarez was a good buy.
Yeah,
but they're not right. Like as you said, like
they still
maybe
don't
they're
have a number 9.
Conference League. I mean, they're in Europa League. They won Conference League last year, right? They must be in Europa League. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not going to win that. And Liverpool, Man U is probably going to drop into it from the Champions League. So yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. It's hard I feel like Premier League clubs like this used to cash in January a lot more.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing way more signings come from international sides in January. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think Paqueta's a real option actually for City. All right. Who do you want to go to next?
Let's go the other side of Manchester.
Okay.
So I was a huge hater in United's window
the summer window.
The summer window.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I rated Mount as my worst transfer of the summer. I didn't think Højlund was the answer because he could be the long-term answer, but it's
a lot of money to spend on a guy who had 4 Serie A goals last year.
And they needed someone now, and he was never going to be the answer. Everyone was like, when he scored those couple champions, they were like, he's here. Still hasn't scored in the Prem. Anyway, at the time of recording this, but I'd take a bet that he has.
I think it's a good bet.
So, starting at United, I'm going to start at center back.
Okay.
Because they need a center back. I put Gahey from Palace or Braithwaite from Everton.
Those would be both great signings. Braithwaite's a player.
So Everton, with the point deduction, is actually playing well enough to where I don't truly
they're safe already.
Yeah, they're not in the relegation battle. So I do think that Braithwaite, I think you could get a price tag for him right now, and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to.
Yeah, I mean, I think him and Gahey both would be great signings for them. I put, as far as center back goes, I put Jean-Claire Todibo.
Oh, okay. There we go.
My problem with maybe Braithwaite or Gahey, and I don't know, I think I'm right about this, but I think they both prefer to play at left center back.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
I'm 99% sure about that. I mean, that is where they play mostly. I don't know what their actual preference is, but that's where they play mostly for their teams. And so the question is, how does that work with Lisandro Martinez? Because the one sure thing to me in that back line, not even that I rate Lisandro Martinez that high, but the one sure thing to me, if Ten Hag is still in charge, is Lisandro Martinez, when he's healthy, is going to start every match at left center back. So then you need to find someone.
Might not be the correct answer, but is the answer. Yes.
That is the current situation. So that's why I went to Debo. He's very comfortable at either, but the fact that he's probably more comfortable at right center back works well in his favor.
I like that. We should preface this all with, we had a report probably a month ago that United's not spending, which is insane.
Yeah,
to me, because if any team needs to spend, I feel like it's United.
It's just crazy because I understand why they're not spending. They've spent $500 million in the last year.
But it's United. You need to.
I agree.
Like United isn't okay with a 6th place finish.
I agree.
That's not their standard.
All right. Oh yeah, you go your second one.
Second one is similar to Calvin Phillips. Sancho's leaving, right?
Yeah, so I actually, funny enough, my next two are both, one's an outgoing and one's a don't sign. The person they're most heavily rumored to.
Oh, I'm excited for the don't sign because I don't know who you're talking about. Sancho. I am such a big fan of Sancho's.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think's his best position? Because to me, Jadon Sancho has never been and will never be a true winger. He's not.
What do you think he is?
He's an attacking
like a 10?
He's an attacking 8? I think, he's not a 10.
Right. You think he would kind of play the Havertz role well?
Yes.
Okay.
But not that. My problem with that is I don't know if he has too much right side bias. Like, I don't think he could play it in the left half space. I think he's a very troubling footballer for modern day because he's not an inside forward and he's not a touchline winger. So then what's his position?
Yeah, my thing, you know what I think is, one, if they can't get Olise, and I think they need a right winger more than a left winger, but I think City, if they got their hands on Sancho back, would be insane.
Well, like, you know how like there's this whole thing with like Arteta just constantly is buying people to revive their careers? Right. Like, I would fucking take Sancho in a heartbeat.
Me too. I mean,
first of all, if you get Sancho for £30 million, I'll take that risk. That's nothing.
You could also, if anything, they'll loan him out.
They won't loan him to a Premier League club. I don't think they'll loan him to a Premier League club.
That's probably true, but like I feel like at this point, I feel like it's so toxic that they might just get rid of him.
It's a crazy situation. I mean, that kind of just brings me to what my second point was which just says begin the clear out. Like, United is so toxic right now, and I'm saying this firsthand from what Arsenal's situation was, like when we were in this place, where it's like
Wenger.
Yeah, with Wenger through Emery, and then when Arteta came in, and it was like, okay, we've got all of these old players. Arteta stuck them together, found a way to win the FA Cup, and then was like, get the fuck out.
Right.
And just like over the course of 3 windows, for basically nothing, he got rid of all of them, which is not good business, right? Everyone was like, how do you buy Aubameyang for $60 million and then just cut him? But like, it was necessary to change the locker room. Yeah. You need to change the locker room.
At some point, you just need to eat it.
And so, they need to get rid of Jadon Sancho. They need to get rid of Van de Beek. Like, if they can get something from Martial before he leaves on a free, like, anything is better than nothing. Get these players out now. Maybe you're not great the rest of the year. You're probably not a Champions League team. You're not going to win any trophies.
Yeah.
You get your young players, like, Kobe Mino needs to be starting every fucking match. They have a lot of young players in that academy. If you can get them into, I'm not saying I even think Ten Hag's a great coach, but if you are backing Ten Hag, you need to get your players learning his system at a young age and into the team. And then by 18 months from now, when it's the start of the 25-26 season, which isn't what the United fans want to hear, if Ten Hag is still there,
they're in the position they need to do a full rebuild.
They need to, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like Arsenal fans were actually, for the most part, like the non-super toxic ones, were very patient with Arteta, where it was like, we see that you're getting rid of all the old people, teaching all the new kids, and then in 4 or 5 years, we're going to be challenging for titles. If at this point we were not in a top 3 conversation, I would be fed up. But I had to go through 3 years of shit. And that's what United need to do. And it starts with this window, getting rid of dead weight. That's where it starts.
And if they're down to do the rebuild, that just needs to be the message and the mentality. Because then I don't hate the Højlund signing. 100%. It's just, it doesn't seem like they're fully committing to a rebuild.
No, they're half and halfing it.
Which never...
Well, that's like when they brought Casemiro in on fucking 4 years, 400,000 pounds a week wages.
Tell me what United's identity is right now.
There is no identity.
That's what, like, you got it. Once you have no identity, which is when we were going through Nuno, Conte, Mourinho, it was just time to blow it up. And Kane leaving hurt me, but it could have been the best thing possible to fully do a rebuild. 100%.
Also, like, I said 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, if Kane would have left, you actually would have been in a better position to win.
The only reason... in reality, yes, but also if you
have to spend the money correctly.
If Levy ever backed a manager with Kane and we brought in and surrounded him with really, really good players, like you see what happened.
I don't know if it was necessarily backing. You made some poor signings.
Yeah. Okay. If we signed the right people players, with the money we spent,
which is easier said than done. Obviously.
Of course. Yeah. And the last thing is, there was a time at Dortmund when there was Bellingham, Haaland, and Sancho. And Sancho might have, at a time, been the most exciting prospect of the 3. So you see what the other 2 have done. Like, Sancho has...
He's an incredible footballer. Yeah. His issue is just, like, if he can find one position and be good in that position, I think he can be spectacular. Yeah. I actually think Emile Smith-Rowe is a very similar player to Sancho in that not a true winger, not a true midfielder, kind of just an attacking threat who's best on the half turn in space, who can drive at players and make something happen. And so the question is, how do you get them in that free-flowing role? I feel like we had this conversation about Pogba on a previous episode, where it's like, when you have a player with that kind of skill, how do you get them into a role where they can be their best? And then it doesn't matter if it's not a designed specific part of a formation, you build around that. Yeah. And I mean, not that Sancho has proven anything that he needs to do that, but I think the right situation, he can get the most out of it.
And I think managers are at a fault of over tacticking and over coaching sometimes. But with Sancho, it almost needs to be the correct amount of coaching to know where to put him and how to put a team around him, but then letting him be free once 100%. You find the position for him. But on to third, I think they need, like we were saying, they're in between a rebuild and not a rebuild. And this is we're not in a rebuild because the top 4 race is still on for us technically move. I think Gonzalo Ramos from PSG is not getting any time. If they could bring him in on loan, potentially, then you
play him up through the middle, you're saying, is another option.
Then you have an immediate goal threat who's fairly versatile. He doesn't need to play. Like, it doesn't have to be Højlund or Ramos. Probably in Ten Hag's system, it might need to be. But
yeah, I mean, you can't play Ramos, Rashford, and Højlund. And you have 3 very similar profiles.
So I just think, but Højlund, I've said this from the start, I didn't think it was the answer anyway if they want to compete for top 4. Gonzalo Ramos, I don't know why PSG spent the money on him and then brought in Colomwani. If they're just going to
PSG does just buy. I think the people who spend at PSG are all not talking to each other, and then they just bring in a whole handful of
Mbappe,
people.
Colomwani, and
they have, what's his name, Hugo
Ekitike, and then Asensio comes on as a he
doesn't Ousmane Dembele too. I mean, he
doesn't feature as a sub even. So to me, it seems like I don't know the ins and the outs of PSG that well, but it seems like a spot where you spent all this money for him and you don't play him. Get him out playing football somewhere.
Yeah. My third was, so you spent all this money on Højlund, and it's similar to what I'm talking about with beginning to clear out. United are heavily rumored at the moment with Serhou Guirassy, the striker from Stuttgart.
Yeah. You're saying don't sign him.
Don't spend 20 million euros on a 27-year-old striker that you're going to be stuck on your books for 4 years. Right. You just spent 80 million euros on Højlund. You're not winning anything this year. Don't add more to the books.
But similar to the Ramos thing, if Guirassy is 27 and you think he can be the answer, what are they? 5, 6 at the time of recording this? They're 5 points off 4th.
Who?
United.
I think they're 3 points off.
Right. So,
but here's my question.
So if you can bring in someone
sneaking into 4th place to get into the Champions League, again, not make it out of the group stage, and have more bad wages on the books, a better long-term plan for Manchester United.
But that's what I'm saying. They're confused. They don't know their identity, and they don't know their plan.
Their identity needs to be not signing 28.
Yeah, that could be the Band-Aid.
And it's not like Guirassy's had 5 great years. He's had one flash in the pan moment that he's having. You talk about lightning in a bottle. Yeah. This is lightning in a bottle.
To
an extreme. Yeah, if you look back at his previous years, there's nothing to back what he's done so far this year, other than the fact that he has literally caught it in a bottle.
Yeah, and I mean that Stuttgart team as a whole has, and you look at
when Union Berlin came in 3rd or whatever, and a couple years ago Slaughterbeck was on Freiburg when they came. Freiburg, they came in 3rd. That happens. It's a farmers league for a reason,
right? And at the time of recording this, Man United plays tomorrow. And could be out of the Champions League.
They could be out of all of Europe if they don't come in 3rd in their group, which is a real possibility.
If they win, if they make it through the Champions League, and then they're into the knockout stage, they're not going to compete, but they're into the knockout stage, and they're competing for top 4. Do you think that could be a better signing?
No.
I agree. I was just curious.
There's just no way.
Because you're not winning the Champions League this year. My biggest issue with the
signing is if you sign another striker 4 months after you spend 80 million euros on Højlund, what is that showing to your fans, to the rest of the team, to Højlund? It shows
you have no fucking plan.
And it shows that you have no confidence in any decision you've made. So it's just, it's psychotic.
It would have been we're in a rebuild, and then they fell into okay, we could compete this year and maybe spend 20 mil to compete this year, but we know in the back we're in a rebuild, and we did everything previously to show that we're in a rebuild, but they didn't. So they're still in this middle ground.
It's almost like United has tricked their fans into believing some of these nonsensical things. I have a friend who's a United fan who said to me, he was like, well, we're only 9 points behind you. And I was like, so if you're 9 points behind us through 14 matches,
Right.
you're on pace to be 27 points behind us. That's what that means. It doesn't mean you're only
Right. They think, I mean, I predicted United to finish 8th in my Premier League predictions from before the season. So I've gotten quite the 6. United following in my TikTok comments. And it's so funny because they win one match and then everyone's in my comments. And then they just recently lost to Bournemouth.
Yeah, at home 3-0.
Yeah. And so it's funny that they come in and out of the woodwork like that. But yeah, they're delusional.
Yeah, they lose 3-0 at home, and then we lost that match at Aston Villa. And my buddy's like literally FaceTiming me and calling me and chirping me. I was like,
what's the
did you just lose to 3-0 at home to Bournemouth?
Yeah.
Like,
you guys lost to the hottest team on the road.
Yeah, in a very close match. Like, that could have easily gone another way. Anyway, all right, next.
Yeah. Spend enough time on someone who's not competing for anything.
All right, let's go Chelsea. Because Chelsea's fascinating. Because they truly could sign 3 players. They could sign 5 players.
Yeah.
They don't really care. I think they're going to bring Ivan Toney in. I think they're going to bring in a striker. I think everybody here knows that Nicholas Jackson is
not the answer.
Not the answer to anybody's questions, unless the question is who is the biggest waste of space on the pitch. So I think they bring in
Other
Ivan
than the
Toney.
3 goals he scored against us in the start of our demise of our season.
That was the worst hat trick in the history
of the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could have had 14 or 15 goals.
So it's funny you went Toney here because...
Well, I'm just going to say, I also think they bring in Toney and like potentially Broha goes the opposite way to reduce the fee a little bit.
Okay, so that's great because I have Broha going out as one of them. And then my number 1, similar to don't sign this guy / start the... I said no more incoming players. So...
Not going to happen, but okay.
I know.
Pochettino said they're literally going to sign 2 or 3 players.
Nkunku was for me my signing of the summer. Got injured, but
always is.
I think him coming back, if he can get fit, will be one of the best players in the Premier League. I am the biggest Nkunku fan you might find.
You do love Leipzig.
I do. I'm a big Leipzig fan. I mean, they just produce studs. Nkunku, I think he was one of the best signings. So I think you bring him in, and
what's his best position? That's my only issue with him.
I think he's
not a straight flat out 9.
No, I think he plays behind. I think he plays a similar way.
So how do you figure that out?
I think he plays a similar way to when I talked about him over the summer. I was really high on Chelsea when they first got Nkunku. I didn't like the Nicholas Jackson signing, but I said Nkunku could emulate what Dele did in his prime at Spurs, the way he played as a second striker, number 10. Mm-hmm. With Reece James and Ben Chilwell playing the Kyle Walker, Danny Rose situation. Like, I thought he could kind of remake what went so well.
Rebuilding Pochettino's Tottenham.
I mean, that was his best team.
Yeah.
And I thought Nkunku is a better version of Dele, and I thought that could have really worked. So what I did is I think Arsenal, and this is kind of going into Arsenal, who we're going to get to, but I think Arsenal's in a position to do and club-wise, they're in different positions, but I think money-wise. But I think Arsenal's in a position to go win the league. So I had them bringing in Ivan Toney. And inversely, I have Chelsea bringing in Osimhen over the summer. The same way you have Toney going to Chelsea and then Osimhen to Arsenal,
which I think is
over the summer.
By the way, that's probably one of those two is probably what's going to happen.
Yeah. So just because Osimhen, you're going to need the price tag, which I think Chelsea has more of than Arsenal, even though Arsenal has spent smarter, so may have some more funds, but once again, it's not our money. We don't know what they're going to do with it.
We don't have Saudis funneling our money.
Yeah, so I said, give Poch, don't bring in anyone new players. Give Poch time with the squad he has. Get rid of a few people. Let Nkunku get into the squad. And then, obviously, Osimhen come in. Jackson's clearly not the answer. Sorry, that was a very long
No, that's fair. I mean, my next 2 for them are basically just they generally have too big of a squad. Like, I don't even have that many specifics. Like, I saw today Gallagher's rumored to get sold.
Yeah, Gallagher, I think, is going to go.
Surprising because he's actually been one of their best midfielders.
Which is so confusing. They have so many people who aren't playing consistent minutes for him, and then the one guy who is, they want to sell.
Trevor Chalobah.
Chalobah, got to sell him.
At least set him on loan for the rest of the year so we can up his transfer value.
That was my third.
Noni Madueke. Send him on loan for 6 months.
Madueke, Chukwuemeka. I mean, not that they're not good players. It's just like, what are you
doing?
I'm
so high on. Yeah. I'm so pissed they got him. Arteta was tracking him. We were close on him, and I was very disappointed. And then my last thing was, as crazy as it sounds, I do think Chelsea are going to buy someone, and this is not a big cost.
I think they will too.
Ryan Cherky from Lyon is.
Oh yeah.
They're putting a 10 million euro price tag on him. That is nothing.
Are they down bad over there?
Yeah, they may get relegated.
Oh really?
Yeah, Lyon's in bad shape.
Wow, I didn't realize it got that bad.
You haven't seen the whole thing about Taylor Swift?
No.
So Taylor Swift's playing in Lyon the weekend of the relegation playoff, and Lyon's never been relegated, so they didn't even. They thought there was no chance.
In the stadium, you're saying?
Yes. So if
I thought you were just saying in the city.
If Lyon end up in the relegation playoff, it's the same night as a Taylor Swift show in the Lyon stadium. Hilarious. So it's a potential disaster. Other than the fact that Lyon could get relegated.
That's a great tidbit.
It is. It's all.
That's amazing.
My Twitter's been a lot about that today. But yeah, incredible profile. I actually think not only would he be really good at Chelsea, but he actually would make Mudryk better. Yeah. Put Mudryk on the left, who's more of the transition.
I think Mudryk is good, and I think he needs time.
Well, the issue is he's a transition player, and they're trying to get him to play in these tight spaces. Yeah. I don't think he's 100 million euros good, but again, not our money. Let's just call him the player. He's a great transition depth. I actually wanted Arsenal to get him because our dynamics are similar. Martinelli's on the left as a transition threat. Saka's more involved in build-up. He's more creative, whatever. Cherky could do that same role for them on the right wing, whether it's in Cuckoo up top or the Tony or whatever. Yep. I think those dynamics would work well. And, I mean, Ryan Cherky was like the youngest UCL debutant at one point. Mm-hmm. He has been a massive prospect for like 6 years, and he's still only like 21 years old. And he's finally hit his stride. This would be a huge signing for anybody, and I think Chelsea, with the project they've got going, like, why not spend another 10 million euros?
Yeah, I'm biased in the fact that I think Poch is a great manager. I know some people don't, but I think his specialty is breeding young players and bringing them up.
Manager. I mean, he's not world class, but he's a good manager.
So I think the key is, like, Chelsea fans don't give it time, don't have unrealistic expectations you are what you are. I think they are committing to a rebuild with all the signings they brought in. None of them are over like 25 or something, 24.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I say give them time. Don't bring anyone else in until you can make that move for Osimhen, because Jackson's not the guy.
I mean, the big thing they need to do is start trimming the squad, because it's just not good for anybody when the squad's that big. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I don't even know how they train.
Yeah, it's insane. All right, last but certainly not least, Arsenal.
Yeah.
So I first went Douglas Luiz. And
really, is that source or
no? That's not source. That's based off of last year. We were really close on deadline day. We wouldn't pay an extra £5 million.
Yeah, I don't
think Aston Villa will sell.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they're sellers at all.
I do think Arsenal will make a push for him regardless.
I think the fact that there could be 5 Champions League spots from the Premier League this year with the new makeup of the Champions League,
but it wouldn't go to who comes in 5th.
It doesn't.
Doesn't it go to like UEFA coefficient? I think Manchester United could come in 7th and make the Champions League.
So I always saw people saying like United or Arsenal could finish in 5th and get in, and I thought they were saying if the Prem qualified as that 5th spot. No. I thought it was just locked in who got the 5th spot.
I think it's based off UEFA coefficient.
Oh, so Villa would need
God knows how they
nonetheless, I mean that ruins my point a tad. But I think they can get in the top.
And by the way, there were huge Douglas Reese rumors 3 weeks ago, and over the last 3 weeks they've completely died because Villa probably won't be sellers.
Right.
But basically my point is I do think we'll bring in another midfielder because, and I'm just going to go right to my second point because it's related, is I think Thomas Partey is leaving. I think
it's time. We
should have sold him this summer.
Yeah.
Not only is there bad stuff around him, and we don't need to speak to that because it's not clear exactly what happened, but
we're not the FBI.
No, I mean, listen, I don't want to have to root for him. I haven't wanted to for a while, but he also can't be relied on. He's been injured. He was injured for 4 matches in his first 8 years with Atletico Madrid. Then he came to Arsenal and he hasn't been healthy at all. You just can't. We do need another midfielder so that Declan Rice isn't playing 90 minutes twice a week the rest of the season. And we also can't rely that Thomas Partey is him. Sell him to the Saudis. The Saudis came in from him in the summer. Get 20 million euros. Use that
Thomas Partey to Saudi makes a ton of sense.
In a lot of ways. And bring in another midfielder, whether that's a Douglas Luiz. I don't think it will be Douglas Luiz, but a similar player who can play 6 but is more of a physical 8. The same way that, like, right now what we like to do in some of the cagier matches, and I think you'll see this out a few times this year, like Liverpool City, is like you play Jorginho as the 6 and Rice as the left 8.
Yep.
So getting another player in that gives us the option to not have Jorginho be one of those two is what I think is coming.
Yeah. I think, and then I like that. I went striker because, as we've talked about, I don't think the front 3s. So I went Ivan Toney to Arsenal. I think the reason I think Brentford's strategy of not selling him is they had the suspension, so people were going to look for a discount. So then you hold him through the suspension into January where Arsenal needs him. You get the premium price for Tony. And I was saying this previously, Brentford are in that category where they're bang in the
right, like Thomas Frank wasn't worried about getting relegated, right. So they didn't need those funds in the summer.
So they are bang in the mid-table, but they're not in the European spot conversation just yet. There's like tiers, and they are in that 9 to 13 range for me. So you can the price tag for Tony off the suspension in January to an Arsenal would be insane. Obviously, you don't think it's going to happen. It probably won't happen. But I think similar to what we talked about with Rice is it was a lot of money, but it was the exact move that you needed. And people are going to tell me Tony doesn't fit into the Arteta system. But originally people said Pep plays without that true striker, and then you get Haaland and you see what he is. Not that Tony is Haaland, but I'm saying the system can be tweaked to fit a better number 9. And in a season where you look at it in January and Arsenal can go and win this league, not signing a true number 9 would feel like a miss to me. And then combining that, and I know you want to comment, is getting Eddie Nketiah out. So I think if you bring in a striker, he's got to go because Jesus is a fantastic backup to have. I think he could even go out on the left wing at times instead of Martinelli. I think Nketiah has played well enough this season that you can get actually a good price from either a lower half Premier League team or he goes abroad.
Yeah, I mean, I think if a striker comes in January, Nketiah will leave because it'd be best for everybody.
Yeah, those were my 1 and 2.
I really don't think we bring a striker in January. It's just not the way Arsenal does things.
I know. But I think sometimes you stray from what you do. You have a chance to go win a title this year. Sure. You could splash. How much do you think Tony would cost in January?
60 million.
Oh, I think it would be more.
Yeah, the issue is I don't see Arsenal spending more than 60 million or 60 million on a player who hasn't played in 6 months.
Because like it's also like you want him to come and start day one.
That's the
Has
issue.
he not been training and you can't replicate it. I agree with that.
He's never played in the Champions League. I just don't think that answer is it's much prettier on paper than it is in real life.
No, that's fair. I think it's interesting that we had the Tony Osimhen thing flipped. I find that very interesting.
All right, my last one is, and we absolutely have to bring in a defender of some type, but this is a player we've been linked with a lot and one that I love, and he played fantastically against us in the Europa League last year for Sporting, and that's Ousmane Diomande, an incredible center back. He can play as a center back, he can play as a right center back, a left center back, he can even invert as a right back. He is one of the most athletic, one of the strongest, and one of the biggest center back prospects in the world. If Arsenal were to get him, I would consider us to have 2 of the best 5 under 23-year-old center backs in the world. I think he is that good, worth every penny, whatever they charge to. I think it would be about 50 million to 60 million euros. But Ousmane Diomande, remember the name. Wherever he goes, he will be an absolute star.
Where is he from?
He plays for Sporting.
They have
him and Ignacio.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why they beat us in the Europa League.
Yeah.
The 2 of them were really good against us.
Yeah, my final was Danny Olmo. So he has fell out of favor.
Positionless player.
He's fell out of favor a little. And I know you say Havertz has been playing better, but I think it's one or the other. You replace Havertz with a better player, and that could be the move that wins you the title, or you replace Jesus with a better player, and that could be the move that I think he could play that Havertz role better than Havertz does, because I actually think he has a relatively high work rate, so when he needs to defend, he could. And I'm a huge fan of Danny Olmo. I think he played really well at the World Cup.
Yeah, he was great
for Spain. And I think, so those were my 2 things, is like Arsenal have a clear chance to win the title. The 2 worst spots are striker, left wing, but that's not being... The 2 most needed spots to go win a title is either replace that Havertz role or replace that Jesus role. So my other one was Danny Olmo. I think he could be the difference and elevate the attacking problems that Arsenal have. He could be a big fix for it.
Yeah. With Fabio Vieira and Emile Smith-Rowe, I don't see us bringing another attacking midfielder in. Yeah. I do think it's inevitable that one of them is gone in the summer. Yeah. So we'll see what happens from there. But understandable that you're not a Havertz fan. I think he's going to change a lot of people's minds. I think he's already changed a lot of Arsenal fans' minds. And obviously people are saying, like, Arsenal fans set the bar so low. I think when we get to roll around to March, people are going to realize the impact he's having on this team.
Fair enough. One of the things that I'm actually a Havertz fan because I thought he was really good originally when he first came into Chelsea. So if that ends up working out, it would be bad for us, but I'd be excited to see a good player get to his best.
Me as well. I mean, I loved him at Leverkusen, so I was so excited to get him at Arsenal even 5 years later.
Yeah.
All right. Best 3 and worst 3 transfers from the summer.
You start.
Best or worst?
Let's start positive.
Okay. Am I ripping all 3?
Yeah, rip all 3.
Declan Rice, James Maddison, and Jeremy Doku. Those are my 3.
Okay. I'm a huge Doku fan, and I included him in our
team
Doku
specifically, I'm saying because he filled an absolute need for a 100%. Team that was already so good. Like, that to me is spectacular that you could find someone immediately to step into a team that good and fill the specific need that you needed.
I completely agree, and he just missed out of my top 3. If it was a top 5, he would fit in. He would fit in at 4. My top 3 worst. My top 3 best. Rice, Maddison.
Yeah. I think those are.
I think if we're talking today and Maddison hadn't missed a game, I think I would put Maddison 1, and
I wasn't even ranking them.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. I would put Maddison at 1 because I think that argument would make more sense because I think we'd be higher in the table if he stayed healthy. And then 3rd, I put Dominic Szoboszlai. Similar to what you said, he came in. They didn't really have a strong number 10.
Yeah.
I think he came in and provided them something that they really needed. So I went Szoboszlai just over Doku, but very similar.
Yeah. I mean, I think Szoboszlai is great. I think he hasn't been at his best in every match. I think he's been a little inconsistent.
Sure. Yeah.
I feel like Doku, almost every match except for the match against Arsenal where he absolutely got locked down. Like, that's not biased. That was the only match where I was not, like, blown away by Doku.
Recently, he hasn't been as good. But that's parring with City's form.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But yeah, I think Szoboszlai has been huge for Liverpool, obviously. Yeah. All right, worst 3. You go first.
So my worst 3 is, this is going to be, some of them are harsh because they need time, and then some of them just, Mount.
Okay.
Similar to Martinelli, I think is one of the most overrated players in the Premier League, and the price tag that he warranted. I understand English and inter-Premier League, but the price we got from Maddison, and they're not the same, but it's similar, and we got the discount because of relegation, of course, but Maddison is so much better, and I thought that was awful business from United. I thought it was a force, and it wasn't a force to them because they clearly wanted him the entire time, but I just thought it wasn't the right move. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think it's early, but the price tag and the output with Caicedo has been atrocious. This one
you can't ignore the price tag when it's that for me, the thing with Caicedo is Declan Rice was begging to be a Chelsea player for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And you went out and in the same window that Rice went to Arsenal for the same exact amount of dollars, you got the worst player. Yeah. That's a fumble.
I think he could turn into be great.
I wanted Caicedo so badly.
But it's going to be great. As of right now, the price tag flop. And what you just said is bad. And then we are recording this a little earlier, but as of right now, I put Havertz / Onana. So Havertz was my 2nd worst transfer this summer just because of the similar thing of the Mount Havertz price and then the Maddison price.
Okay.
And Onana, I think, has not been good, but is getting memed to death a little unfairly. I think he's had solid performances.
I mean, I put him on my list.
You did. I think he's had solid performances, but he's getting memed to death. You spend that much on
a goalkeeper, you better be fucking great.
And you go into the United limelight where coming off De Gea, he got memed to death. Like, it's just, it's a tough position to go into.
It's less so, I don't blame Onana, I more so blame United. Like, you brought in a player for 50 million euros who's not even, like, he's supposed to be a great on-the-ball goalkeeper. And, like, if you're great on the ball, you can give up some shot stopping, but he hasn't even been great on the ball.
No, he's been,
that's the issue.
That's been a bigger problem.
By the way, the best teams don't need the best shot stoppers.
Right.
You should be
controlling.
Good to have.
It's not a need to have.
Right. Like, Alisson is literally a 1 in a million. You should be controlling the matches to the point where goals are going to be scored at such a low rate and you're going to have so few shots on target that you don't need a spectacular goalkeeper.
Yeah. At the peak of Bayern, like, Neuer was questioned at times for, like,
Yeah, he invented this, basically, this role, being a sweeper keeper. All right, so, yeah, I'd Caicedo 1. I think that's without a question. My third one, well, I had a special mention for Tonali because they bought $60 million and then he got
That's tough. I'll never hate on someone who loves gambling.
I agree. I just had to throw him
That's
in
a
there
good shout, though. That's a good shout.
I actually had an interesting one. James Trafford, who Burnley spent 17 million euros on. It's a goalkeeper from Manchester City. I recently was actually just doing on my other podcast, I was talking about Arsenal's academy goalkeepers. And I was just looking at how City sold Trafford for 17 million. They sold Bazunu for 20 million. And I was looking back at a lot of like their stats from when they were on loan in the lower leagues and like their performances. I was like, how the fuck did they get 40 million euros for these two guys? Like, they're fine, but that's ridiculous. Like, Arsenal has had
a good keeper.
He's fine. Yeah. 20 million. If you're a club fighting to stay up, you don't spend 20 million on a fucking goalkeeper.
Yeah.
You don't on a project goalkeeper who's got no experience at this level. Yeah. You go get like fucking Ben Foster out of retirement for God's sakes. Like, go sign Uri on a free and see if he'll play. Yeah. You know what I mean?
How's Day not on a team at this point?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think more so like Burnley is struggling in so many other facets. Yeah. Like, the money didn't make sense to spend there. And like, Burnley is not a club that spends a lot. Yeah. So to spend 17 million on a goalkeeper to me is just even if Trafford was having a spectacular season, I don't think that takes them out of the relegation zone. So
I like that.
I put that there. That's all I got.
So what is it? Caicedo,
Onana, Trafford.
Oh, Onana. Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Again, I think it speaks volumes. Like, goalkeeping isn't, if you're a club that isn't like already at the top level who just needs a goalkeeper to take them to the next level, that shouldn't be where your budget's going.
Fair enough. All right, that is the transfer special. Happy New Year to everyone who watched. If you didn't subscribe already, please hit that subscribe button. Like if you've enjoyed. And this is going to come out right at the start. Predict who you think the best signing of the January window will be.
Tell us who you want us to discuss on the next week. We'll be talking about January transfer window, the entirety of it, who you want at your club, whether or not you agree with our choices. And we're excited to hear from you.
And we'll see you next time.
Peace.